there's milk rather than cream. Once we have whisked the eggs and sugar until fully incorporated, and also to dissolve the sugar, so we have to do that long enough for that to take place, and then our milk has come to a boil here. We pour the boiling milk over the eggs and sugar. We'll keep the pot nearby as soon as we stir this to incorporate it. And do stir, don't get too excited here and create a lot of bubbles. Then we'll pour that back into the pot. And then the pot goes back on the burner. And now here is where we have to watch out for temperature. If we bring this to a boil, what will happen is that the eggs will curdle. In other words, we'll get a separation. So keep an eye on it, bring it to about 185 degrees, which is at that point where a liquid will just begin to boil. And that is not going to take very long at all. We want to save our bowl. I'll put that right there, and this looks like it's just about ready. We'll pour it back into the bowl. A lot of pouring back and forth here. It doesn't take a lot of expertise, a little bit of care, and then our white chocolate. And I want to tell you a little bit about the white chocolate as I'm cooling this product down, cooling the custard down. When you go to the grocery store and buy white chocolate, do be certain that you're buying something that has cocoa butter, because that's what good white chocolate is made with, cocoa butter. I have one of these that I've already cooled down in an ice water bath. So let me put this aside and pull that over so you can see what it starts looking like once we've cooled it down. And we'll use this custard for another batch a little bit later. But our ice water bath is a simple setup with ice and water. Our large bowl, our ice is pretty much melted now, or maybe that went into one of our mixed drinks that we were involved with a little earlier on. Just kidding there, wouldn't do that. So here it is, totally cooled down, ready to go into our ice cream freezer. I've got one of the components of the freezer in the freezer, and that's our stand-up freezer. And this is a tube that is a sealed tube that has coolant in it, and it goes into this nifty little ice cream maker. And one of the reasons why I like this, it's because it's an economical ice cream maker. You can buy some of these very deluxe models that'll set you back about $400 the copy. This one here is about $50. Or perhaps if you're a good shopper, you can find it for a little bit less. The custard goes into the tube here. All of it right in there. We have a 1.5 quart of mixture going into essentially what is a 1.5 quart tube. Top goes on. And then let's see if we can get this correct. There we go. And then we start cranking. So put on a Frank Sinatra record and do crank away. Now you can leave this coolant, well, I would recommend that you crank it for perhaps about 3 to 4 minutes, and then you can leave it if you want to answer the phone and then come back and crank it. So depending on how much time you spend with it, perhaps it'll take you anywhere from 15 minutes to, let's say, a half hour to get some ice cream. And when that ice cream is ready, this is what it looks like. We have some that's in the freezer here, our stand-up freezer, a big bowl of it. And here is our white chocolate ice cream. And this is a rather salubrious mixture. Look at that. And I'm going to taste some of this. At my restaurant, The Trellis, we put big scoops of white chocolate ice cream into a huge balloon glass. We pour hot chocolate over it, or fresh red raspberry puree, depending on the season, and we call it a white chocolate balloon. And that is probably one of our most popular desserts because it goes out in this huge balloon glass, and people love the looks of it. But forget about what it looks like. I'm loving how this is tasting. For white chocolate ice cream, you'll need 12 ounces white chocolate, broken into half-ounce pieces, 3 1/4 cups whole milk, 1 cup granulated sugar, and 3 eggs. Freeze the mixture in an ice cream freezer following manufacturer's instructions. Transfer the semi-frozen ice cream to a plastic container and place in freezer for several hours before serving.
When we return, Marcel prepares deep dark chocolate cookies that go with any ice cream or just all by themselves.
Death by Chocolate, Thursdays at 8 on TLC.
Hold on to your taste buds. It's time for more Death by Chocolate.
Welcome back, fellow chocolate lovers. We've prepared our white chocolate ice cream. Now all that we need to make a match made in heaven are some cookies, specifically chocolate cookies. And if a nocturnal lust for chocolate has you making furtive movements towards the kitchen, I suggest a few deep dark chocolate fudge cookies. And if you're really good, we'll make some absolutely deep dark chocolate fudge cookies. Well, let's get the cookie batch going. The first thing we'll do will be to sift our dry ingredients. I have a cup and a half of all-purpose flour. And then we have a half a cup of unsweetened cocoa. And this is loading up our sifter here. 1 teaspoon of baking soda, that's baking soda, and just a smidgen of salt. And I know sometimes it seems a little bit odd that we're putting salt in sweet confections. However, salt is a flavor enhancer. And we're not quite sure, when I say we're not quite sure, the scientists don't know exactly how that happens. We just know that it happens, that it does bring out flavors. And cookies baked without any salt at all would be a little bit blander. Okay, we'll set aside our sifted dry ingredients. I'll point out our melted chocolate. We've melted 8 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate and 4 ounces of unsweetened chocolate. And that'll be ready to go into the batter now. It's beautifully nice and smooth. Just have to give it the taste test. It looks smooth, but we don't know until we get a taste. I have 1.5 cups of light brown sugar that I will be creaming along with 12 tablespoons of butter. I'm putting that in a KitchenAid mixer, and we're not particularly trying to sell you on a KitchenAid mixer. However, it certainly is a good idea to have a stand-up mixer as we have here. Trying to do my work for me, wasn't it? So here we go. We put our 12 tablespoons of butter in there, and then we put the mixer on, and we'll be creaming that for about a minute. And I'll do it really on high speed here just to get it going real quickly. And then we want to scrape down the side of the bowl, and that's to make sure we incorporate all our ingredients. Then we add our eggs. We have 3 whole eggs, 1 egg at a time. Put it on high, get it going, scrape down the bowl, and then we have to do that twice more. There it is. And then we have just a drop of vanilla, about a teaspoon of vanilla, and we'll give that the eye measurement. And of course, this is one of those ingredients that a bit more certainly doesn't hurt. And that's creaming nicely. Next step is to add the melted chocolate. And once again, that was 4 ounces of the unsweetened and 8 ounces of semi-sweet. And this really has that texture that I think is so specific to chocolate. And it reminds me of when I look at chocolate in this form, how it's already melted, I think about what happens when I have it inside my mouth. And chocolate is one of those ingredients that you don't have to think about whether you like it or not. As soon as you taste it, it explodes. And if I'm not careful with this mixer, I'll have it exploding all over the kitchen here. Okay, now our dry ingredients, and I want to be particularly careful about adding these, and just reminding myself that I want to start that mixer on low speed to begin with, so that we don't have a lot of cocoa dust spewing out all over the place. I'm just going to put that on low here for a second, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about cocoa while I clean up our working area. We're using unsweetened cocoa, and unsweetened cocoa is the product that we garner from unsweetened chocolate. They take unsweetened chocolate, it's pulverized, and they remove all the cocoa butter. And the cocoa butter we use to make good white chocolate. The other part, which are the cocoa solids, are ground and used to make cocoa. And I want to be specific about saying that because you certainly don't want to go out and buy breakfast cocoa, which has sugar added to it. In fact, when you do buy cocoa, take a look at the ingredients, and there'll only be one ingredient listed, and it'll say on the box 100% cocoa. Now, there is one other variation on that, and that's cocoa, and we'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later. But my batter is looking good at this point. And remember I said if you were good, we'd make some absolutely deep dark chocolate fudge cookies? Well, seems like everyone around here has been good, so we'll add those chocolate chips. I have 2 cups of chocolate chips that I will add to the batter. Fold those in. Is there a prettier sight than 2 cups of chocolate chips tumbling into the batter? And then using our rubber spatula, we'll mix that thoroughly. And then we start dropping the cookies. And really, that's the name for these cookies in technical terms. We have different types of cookies, bar cookies, refrigerator cookies, and this is a drop cookie. And by that we mean we use a big tablespoon and we drop a couple of tablespoons of the batter right onto the cookie sheet. We'll be doing that here, making 6 cookies to the sheet, making sure that we've got this sufficiently. There we go. About 2 of those per sheet, and after we've laid that out, then we get to go to the oven. They'll be put in the oven, by the way, at 350 degrees, about 18 to 22 minutes. And then when they come out of the oven, they look like this, and they do spread out like that. And then, deep dark chocolate fudge cookies. We begin with 1½ cups all-purpose flour, ½ cup unsweetened cocoa, 3 eggs, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon salt, 8 ounces semi-sweet chocolate broken into ½ ounce pieces, 4 ounces unsweetened chocolate also broken into ½ ounce pieces, 1½ cups tightly packed light brown sugar, 12 tablespoons unsalted butter, 1 teaspoon pure vanilla extract, and 2 cups semi-sweet chocolate chips. Bake the cookies for 18 to 22 minutes in a preheated oven at 325 degrees.
Stay with us. Marcel's coming back with one more touch of chocolate with his chocolate-dipped Hokey Pokey cookies. Time for more indulgence on Death by Chocolate.
Okay, as a fellow chocoholic, I understand there are times you're looking for more of a taste of chocolate rather than an overload. Chocolate-dipped Hokey Pokey cookies fit the bill, and it's the absolutely perfect accompaniment to white chocolate ice cream. I'm going to go over to the oven and get our toasted almonds, which have been baking at 3 1/4. Takes about 8 minutes. And we'll leave that temperature setting at 3 1/4 because that's the exact same temperature we'll be baking our Hokey Pokey cookies at. This really is a very simple batter to prepare. We start out with 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1 egg white. Then we have 1 teaspoon of melted butter. Use the rubber spatula to get all our butter out. And then we have just a little bit of salt, in fact, 1/4 teaspoon. And then we have 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. And be careful on the almond extract because it really has a very, very specific taste, and too much of it will really overpower the cookie. Now, I will mix this batter using a rubber spatula. You may do this by hand, as I'm doing it here, or you can do it over a double boiler. The double boiler gives you the advantage of taking a little bit less time. It's going to take us about 15 to 20 minutes of doing it in this fashion, or perhaps about 5 minutes over heat. So if you're relaxing and perhaps you have a cup of coffee nearby and you don't mind taking a little bit of time, you certainly can do it this way, or we can expedite it by doing it over a double boiler. Let's do it that way, but first we add our toasted almonds. And then we place the bowl directly over the double boiler. And then we mix the cookies. Not a cookie yet. I can never wait to get to the end product, but the batter at this point. Wanted to tell you a little bit about the name Hokey Pokey. I was on a trip to New Zealand a few years ago, and that's where I was exposed to the Hokey Pokey, or to that flavor, which seems to be a national ice cream flavor in New Zealand, Hokey Pokey. And it's made with almonds, and it has a caramel flavor to it. And when I returned to Williamsburg, I thought it was such a great name. In fact, so often, names that we come up with for our desserts, actually, we come up with the name first, and then we find a dessert to go along with it. And that's how Death by Chocolate came about. First the name, and then the concoction. So I talked to our pastry chef, John Twitchell, and told him about this great flavor. And John is really the one that came up with this cookie. And it's just really the right finish to go along with ice cream. It has a good snap to it, great nutty flavor. And I'm keeping an eye on this right here, and I can see that the sugar is dissolving. And in just a few seconds, we'll be able to remove that. I'll let it set there for just a moment while I move over and make our guide to forming our cookies. We certainly can do these free-form if we like, and that is that we could spread the batter out in somewhat of a circle on the pan and go with that. On the other hand, we can do it using a little template here, which I'll draw a couple of circles on a piece of parchment paper. And then this is a 6-inch circle, and we'll fill the batter into that circle. We'll turn it over first, and that way we won't get any of the lead transferring onto the to the cookie. Okay, and we'll split the batter evenly onto the 2 circles. We're doing this on a non-stick baking sheet, as you can see. Certainly when we're using parchment paper, that's not a consideration, just happens to be what we have. They're great little baking sheets though. But I would do it directly onto the parchment paper, of course, once again because we're using the circle here as a guide. And then we use our rubber spatula to spread the batter. And this is not precise. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, so move with a little bit of speed. Don't try to get it perfect inside the circle because it will spread out a little bit more as they bake. And once again, this will be going into a 325 oven, and it takes about 18 to 22 minutes. And then we have a great cookie, as you'll see. Let's put that in the oven. 325. And then we have another pair down here. And when we remove them from the oven, we'll use a pizza cutter, and they do need to be warm. If you let these cool, what happens is they become very brittle. And so we want to be certain to cut when the I'm going to ruin this baking sheet if I try to cut them directly on that non-stick sheet. So let me slide them off onto the cutting board and then use this pizza cutter, just like that. And then we'll peel them off the parchment paper. And then you can break them apart with your hand, just as I have here. And let's get them all off the parchment paper at this point. But this really is a great ice cream cookie. In fact, if you'd like to break them up into small pieces and fold them into that white chocolate ice cream after it comes out of the your ice cream maker, then you have something that's similar to the Hokey Pokey ice cream that I had in New Zealand. Now, for a splash of seduction, I dip the cookie into some melted chocolate and enjoy. Chocolate dipped Hokey Pokey cookies. Our ingredients are half a cup sliced almonds, 1/4 cup granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons all-purpose flour, 1 egg white, 1 teaspoon unsalted butter melted, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon pure almond extract, and 3 ounces semi-sweet chocolate chopped into 1/4 inch pieces. Bake for 20 to 24 minutes in a preheated oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the baking sheet 180 degrees halfway through the baking time. Cool for 30 minutes before removing from parchment paper. There you have it, cookies and cream, death by chocolate style. Thanks for spending some time with us. For the Learning Channel, I'm Marcel Desaulniers. Sweet dreams.